work, because you are not going to want to miss this interview with award-winning Lisa Barr. She's the author of 3 books, and you will not want to miss what we're going to talk about today, The Unbreakables, and her new one, who she just got the
show and tell.
Yes. So you're seeing it here first. I don't even think she's really showed too much of it even on social media. So you're getting a sneak peek today, and her book is actually on sale for pre-order down below that you can grab. She's also the author of the award-winning Fugitive Colors and The Unbreakables, which was just a beautifully written book. I know you're going to love it. And we're going to talk about all the things. Lisa is really one of the most fascinating people I have ever met. We actually got to talk on the phone before this interview, and I had to stop myself a few times and say, no, we have to talk about that on our live. So thank you, Lisa, for hopping on. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you so much, Erin, for inviting me. You're the best, and I'm just so impressed with all the things that you do. So I really appreciate being here. So I am a mom of 3. 3 books, 3 kids. I'm a mom of 3. I'm from Chicago. I have been a journalist for, almost 30 years as well. I have a blog, and I combine it all with writing books, and I'm happily married. I've got a dog that listens to my books because I read them out loud before I hand them into my editor to hear the dialogue. And, lots of things. But right now, as you mentioned, my new book, Woman on Fire, is, up for pre-order while I'm still promoting the other books. And, it's a crazy life, this writer's life, but I love it.
One of the things I absolutely loved about The Unbreakables, first of all, the cover is beautiful. It makes me want to go to Paris. It makes me want to go to a bakery right now and get a baked good and a coffee. And we talked about this a little bit, about strong female characters and about women finding their identity. And just watching this play out in a novel was so beautiful. What was it like to write your character there? And what was the best part of this for you?
I mean, it's very interesting. I feel like Sophie Bloom has a lot of me or things that I went through in my own life inside of the book. So part of it was, it just kind of bled out of me. In 9 months, I wrote that book. I gave birth to that book, whereas my other one was a 10-year period. But it really was a tribute to a woman's strength in the face of heartbreak and adversity, and how we can hit rock bottom, but there's always the climb, and you can come out of it. And so I wanted to create a book where a woman's life basically fell apart. She lost her best friends, her husband cheated on her, everyone that she loved betrayed her, and she had to figure it out and start again, and really rely on herself and her own inner strength to get through it. So, it was hard, it was fun, it was funny, because even in pain, there's things that happen that we laugh about, that, just the lighter side of it, if I can express that. And for me, it was such a joy to write this book and really to showcase a woman who was strong, who lost her strength and regained it again in a different way. I loved writing this book.
I think the beginning of the book, and we don't do spoilers on the show, so if you're watching and you're ordering it, I did pull it up in the carousel. It's actually 24% off. Great book, you guys. I love The Unbreakables. I felt like there's a little bit of Sophie Bloom in all of us in the beginning, when her world fell apart, and it's almost like reading a train wreck happening, and you think, oh wow, that was horrible. And then something else happens, and you're like, this lady can't catch a break. She cannot catch a break. And then she just decides, she's going to make her life what it is. It's hers. And she's very artsy. She's an artist, which sometimes people misunderstand, I think, artists, and they're in a different mindset sometimes in the way they express themselves and the way they go through things, and they go through pain. And so much of us go through so much pain. And I think you and I have talked a little bit about that, and all the things happening in the world right now, and things that are just so heavy and so heartbreaking. And I think we said books are solace, books are refuge for hard times. And as a reader, I know I speak for so many of us that we're thankful for authors like you that can create beautiful books that give us that sense of just a moment when we just need a moment when life feels really heavy.
Yeah. I sort of wanted to create, obviously the book begins with infidelity, but really the book was about losing her own self, as a mom, kind of putting it all into her kids, her daughter especially, and her husband and other relationships, that somewhere along the way she lost her own passion. So even though her husband betrayed her, her best friend betrays her, it's not a spoiler, it's right there in the beginning, but Sophie lost Sophie long before that. And so this was a journey. And I think very interesting. Like, I have, obviously a lot of women readers who are reading this, but also a lot of men, which I was so surprised about, really connecting to the relationship piece and, the different things that you go through in a marriage, especially.
Yeah. And that was important too, because I remember reading it and thinking, how did she even do that? How did she even not, lose her mind with anger? And she really held it together. But really, I think when you experience really true devastation and heartbreak, we always talk a good game, like, well, we would do this until it happens. And then you just never know how it's going to go until something like that unfortunately happens. And so with that, I think the way this played out was not how, just really unique how it played out, and really interesting, and not at all your typical, this was definitely not your typical like romance or anything like that. It was just so good. And I love that it was different. We'll just put it that way. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away too much. I hate that when people spoil a book, but definitely so much character depth there, and women finding themselves. I think I say a lot over on my YouTube channel is we can't pour from an empty cup as mothers and women, and we have to have an identity outside of our motherhood or even being a wife. And if you don't find that, what happens when the kids get older?
I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you what happens. So, I have 3 daughters and they're in their 20s, and they went off to college. And, so much of my life, when you're an author and you're a mom and you're racing from one thing to the next, and, there's no such thing as the balancing act. And then there's the moment they're all 3 in college. So I remember going to Whole Foods, and I went to go grocery shopping. And in my mind, I divide, what is my husband like? What is this one like? What's my vegetarian? And there I am. And it was, what do I like? And I stood there in Whole Foods and I thought, I don't even know anymore. I don't remember. And so I know that's a really small thing, but I think
but it represents so much.
It's so indicative that even when they left and the nest was empty, I had to relearn, now all of a sudden I have all this time to write, where before I was always seeking stolen time. When they were little, when the video was on, the TV was on, I had 20 minutes and I had to race and write. And, as they got older, I had more time, but older kids, bigger problems, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, or bigger challenges. And when it was all of a sudden just me and my passion, I was a little bit at loss what to do. And so interestingly, I sort of worked through a bunch of these things while I was writing this book.
Oh, I love that. Now, one of the things, we recently had Zibby Owens as a guest on the show. Yes. And when I was reading her book a few weeks back, I noticed that you were a contributor for her book.
Yes.
And you talked about moms don't have time to, it was in the section, moms don't have time to have sex. And you talked about, right? And it's that you talked about forget date night, try date day.
Yes.
I loved what you wrote in there about dating your husband, about people would look at you like you guys were like having an affair, because during the day you would like hold hands and have coffee. And I think that's so lost sometimes with marriage is we get lost in the day-to-day grind that we forget
Yes.
what's really important.
I totally agree. I think a lot of times in marriage, and especially marriages with young kids, romance gets replaced with resentment. I did this, you did that, and it becomes this competition. So it's very hard to carve out time. And a lot of people, the gist of that article, and just as an aside, Zibby is the best. I mean, as we said, she does everything and so much for authors. So I was really honored to be in that anthology. But you know, so many people say, okay, we'll save it all up for date night. And by the time you get to date night, if you're not doing the work the rest of the week, all you want to do is date sleep. You know, it just doesn't work. So my thought, and the way we work with my husband, we carve out time every day, no matter what, to have coffee together, even if it's 15 or 20 minutes. And we don't talk about all the details. It's really just about us. And it kind of gives, every day a little date day, excitement. And it just reminds us why we not only love each other, but why we like each other, why we're together. And as you were saying, someone came up to us and said, I don't mean to pry, but are you two having an affair? Because this was, kind of every morning, kind of this like secret meeting. So I'm really a big proponent of date day. I think it's important.
That was really funny when I read that in there. And I also loved how you guys talked about how you said, I'm going to read this from the book. I hope it's okay for me.
Yeah.
You said, believe me, my husband has never looked as hot to me as he does unloading the dishwasher.
Totally. Because you know what it is? It's not the dishwasher. It's when your significant other, whoever that is, sees you. When you've had like such a day, you're ready to just plots, and you still have all the dishes and all the other things you need to do. And when they say, you know what, I'm going to do it, you go relax or do whatever it is. You're like, oh my God, that is so hot.
You are just
that is so hot.
Amazing. Yes, I get that too. Let's talk about your new book, because you sent me a card with the cover on it, and it's on my board up there. It's so beautiful. What a beautiful cover. Let's talk about that a little bit. Are you allowed to give us a little bit about what it's about?
Here she is again, Woman on Fire.
Nice.
My new book. Sorry for the shameless promotion.
No, but, this is where the spotlight is on you.
Okay, I will take it. All right. Thank you. So this.
And also, let me just embarrass you just a little that this is the most requested book on NetGalley right now.
Yes.
People are looking for you. They want this book. And everybody can pre-order it now and have it. And what is your pub day for that?
Thank you. Okay, so it's among the most requested historical fiction books, and interestingly, a lot of those other books that are on there are friends of mine. So it's kind of fun to be on that list together. Yes, but my pub date is March 1st, and the book is about a young journalist who gets involved in a major international arts scandal centered around a Nazi looted painting. And for me, it kind of combined everything I love to write, suspense and history and art and strong female characters and passion. So I was able to kind of put it all in one book, and also kind of to tap in. The protagonist is a 24-year-old journalist, and I was able to tap into my younger days as a journalist.
I was wondering if you
so that was awesome. That was really fun to write and kind of go back there and look at it with fresh young eyes, innocent eyes in a way, before life gets complicated. But my character's life gets very complicated in this book, lots of twists and turns, and I really loved writing it.
Does this one have steamy scenes in it?
There's a couple steamy scenes. I didn't want to disappoint those who read The Unbreakables, but The Unbreakables has some very steamy scenes, as you know. This one does as well, but I always say it's not about the sex or the steam. It's what really goes on in the character's mind. A great sex scene always moves the book forward. It's not really about, the mechanics, let's just say. It's really about the thought process, who this other individual they're with, what's happening. And it's a great sex scene will move the book forward. So yes, there are some passionate scenes in this one and some very passionate ones in The Unbreakables. And it's really because Sophie Bloom is literally going to have a sensual and an artistic awakening when she leaves her suburban life in Chicago and heads to the south of France to rediscover her joie de vivre, you know, her lust for life. So it does get a little sexy, and yeah, some good sex
that is
scenes in there.
awesome. So Woman on Fire, what time frame does this take place in?
So it's taking place now, literally, you know, right now. But there's a lot of history relating to the painting. So it kind of combines this historical fiction with contemporary and suspense elements. It's all in there. And yeah,
it's a whole package.
It's a full package. So I'm super excited about it.
Cannot wait to read it.
Thank you.
So you started with journalism 30 years ago, which that doesn't even seem possible because that would have made you 5.
It would have made me 5.5, right? No, I have 24-year-old daughters, my oldest. So
that's insane. You are so vibrant and so young.
Thank you.
Well, I hope that whatever age you are, I hope that I'm same when I'm that age.
Oh, you've got it. Don't worry.
So when did you start writing novels?
So I really wrote my first novel when I was 23. Nothing happened to it, you know, and I decided to kind of really put all my energies in journalism. So I was a reporter out in the Middle East for 7 years in Jerusalem. And but at the same time, I would report by day and I'd work on my fiction at night. And my first book, Fugitive Colors, which is a historical thriller, that really took place almost 10 years of writing this book, sort of while I had my kids, while I got through a divorce and a remarriage, and lots of life took place in between that book. And, you know, it's also this book, Woman on Fire, is about stolen art, and The Fugitive Colors is also. And The Unbreakables also has an art element. My main character is a sculptor. And I think even though I jump around genres, I'm known as a genre jumper, that's the piece that ties in all my work. It's the art, and I really focus on one question: how far would you go for your passion? And I think that's in all my work and really in my journalism as well. It's kind of my guiding theme, I would say.
And what has been your personal experience with that? Has that been a kind of a balance with motherhood and just, you know, being a wife? Have you had to kind of fight for your passion to write even when you're busy as a mom?
I think that's an amazing question, and it could probably take us an hour to discuss it. So no, really, because I think that is at the heart of anyone who has a career and has kids. And it's, you know, I always say there's no such thing as the balancing act. You can do one thing well in that period of time, you know, but it was a fight, you know, trying to, you know, work on my fiction and raise my kids at the same time. And I was a single mom for a while, which I always say is the hardest job in the world. And it was, and I tried to make it work. So, you know, they always say when you're a young mom, you sleep when the kids are sleeping. Biggest fallacy ever. I don't think I ever slept once while my kids were sleeping. But what I would do is I would write, and I would write when they were sleeping. I would write whenever I could. I'd write. So I never suffered from writer's block because I was very disciplined to utilize that time that I did not have, that I always say that I stole, to write. And, you know, so I feel like I got bits and pieces. Now I have a lot of time to do what I love and to write, because as I mentioned, I'm an empty nester. But I was never hard on myself when I couldn't have that time. I understood that, you know, there are demands and they take you in all different directions, and that's okay.
What are you working on right now?
So right now, even though the book is out, there's still more parts of the process before the book is launched. So I kind of rotate between social media, different things, various promotions, working on a new book, which is also historical and historical fiction. And so that's been kind of fun, just really beginning that, the first draft of that. So whenever I can squeeze in time that's not related to Woman on Fire, I will work on this new book. So yeah, so I'm doing that.
As a writer to have this baby and then it doesn't, even though it's born kind of, it's not born for like another 18 months and then you have to, you're in the waiting, it's the hurry up and wait mentality. And
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that has to be so bizarre. I know when I first was talking to you, I'm like, that's in 6 months. I want to read it now.
And the funny thing is, in my world, 6 months, I'm like, that's in 5 minutes. You know, like I just feel like I have so much to do before this book gets launched, and you know, different things that I'm putting together for it. But it really is a bizarre, the writer life is bizarre, you know, that you have a book that you're putting out, a new one that you're working on, and you might be promoting past books at the same time. So you kind of working all parts, all moving parts. And
where do you see yourself in 5 years as a writer? Do you have a lot in the hopper? Are you working on a bunch?
I definitely see myself, you know, where do I see myself in 5 years? You know, love to make a movie. I would love to make a movie.
Unbreakables would be an amazing movie.
Unbreakables would be a great movie. Yes. I mean, it's very cinematic. And Fugitive Colors, it was optioned and then things didn't happen, you know, like all those types of things. But yeah, I would love to make a movie for sure. But I mean, I feel like I'm doing what I love. Writing is breathing for me. And every time, sometimes I'll be like, I just want to pull my hair out. And then the next day I'm back in writing, you know, so there's those moments, those pull and, you know, different moments where you can question it. And that maybe will be questioning it for maybe 5 minutes. And then I'm back in. So I see my 5-year plan sitting right here, working, promoting my books. I mean, because I'm doing what I love. And that's what I always tell women, you know, because there's always that point where you're looking to reinvent yourself, especially when the kids get a little bit older. And I'm always saying, do what you love, what that inner voice is telling you to do. I mean, that's it. And we can't always do what we love, you know, because there's lots of different things that come at us. Maybe it's financial issues or things like that that are real. But if you do get a chance, you know, we were talking about you before this went live, and you're working on your own little secret projects. And I think but that's what you love also, you know, and I think it's so important for women and for men and for, you know, all of us, how, you know, however anybody identifies, to do what they love. It's really crucial and important.
I think it's really important to know, as a, like you said, man or woman, even if you are not happy where you're at, sometimes we're in seasons, that season where babies are little and we're in diaper days. And then there will be a day where we're in teenager days, where that comes with its whole slew of bigger problems, like you said. Right. And then there are times where it's right and all the stars align and it feels right. Yeah. And we can't ever be afraid to pivot and chase what makes us happy. Sometimes we'll find ourselves in that place, like you said, where our cups aren't filled, and we have to be able to pivot and fill our cups when we need to.
I agree totally. And I think people just need to give themselves a break and not be hard on themselves, because there are going to be, as you're saying, times in life where it's just smooth sailing. And most of life, it's, you know, putting out fires, and, you know, it really is. But in between, I think, you know, as a mom, I think it's really inspirational to my daughters that they see me doing this, that I love it. And that it, you know, even though I could be working crazy hours writing, they know it, they know that I love it. And it's for them, it's a great example for them to do what they love in their lives, you know, and I try to push that and promote that.
I think a lot of us feel like as moms, we were raised with maybe a generational thing where if you're not being a martyr or doormat, are you being a mom? And that's such an unhealthy way to be. And I always remind myself, I don't want my daughters or sons to be that way. I don't want them to not have their passions because they're pouring everything out for the ones they love. I want their cups to be full too.
Yes.
Role model that good, healthy inner strength. And if you're not happy with where your life is, never be afraid to rewrite your story.
Yes, never be afraid. And, we're all works in progress. And even when you think someone has it all together, they really don't. We're all works in progress. We're all in it together. And, and we're all just trying to do the best that we can. And so I try to infuse sort of that perfect imperfection in my characters. That twists and turns, how are they going to navigate? Because that's life. How are you going to navigate when this is thrown your way or that's thrown your way? And as you're saying, it's really acceptance. Acceptance is so important. Acceptance wherever you are in life. And I think, you had mentioned about Sophie Bloom and the Unbreakables, that she was dealing with things. There were points that she was just enraged. I wanted her to go through the 5 steps of grief to come out the other end, because and even though she tried to skip them, it didn't quite work for her. But I think when I wrote The Unbreakables, it really is, The Unbreakables is your spirit. And that's not a spoiler or a giveaway, but it really is. People can go through a lot of things, but if you keep your spirit in check, and if you believe in yourself and you believe in love, and that time can heal. I mean, yes, a lot of cliches, which are true, but you can get there. And I've been there. I've been at rock bottom. I went through a divorce that took everything out of me. And I was, devastated. But at the same time, I had 2 little girls, and I still had to be fun mommy while I was dealing with hard life issues. And, we all go through various things at different points. And I think, as writers, we should be encouraged to tap into that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Where's your favorite place to write?
That's the easiest question in the book. And you could ask anyone who knows me. I am in a cafe, in my little corner in a cafe, with my cappuccino and my croissant. And I am just that's my fuel. But I have worked in a cafe pretty much all my life. And the reason is, when we were dealing with all kinds of lockdown, I was obviously home and having to pivot from that. And that was hard for me. But writing can be a lonely solo experience. It's you and these characters and your laptop or your computer, however you work. And it can get lonely. Sometimes I love the quiet, but I work in a cafe because I love the airborne conversation, and I feel like I'm part of something, even though I'm in my own little bubble world, So for me, cafe writing is the way to go. And I feel like if I had another life, I was probably in a cafe in Paris in the 1920s. That's where I was before I was here. Just letting you know.
1920s?
Yeah, where it was art and love and life. And
yes, I love the clothes and everything.
Yes, and just the freedom, the bohemian lifestyle. I feel like somewhere, because that's what I love to write about, and that's where I veer toward. And, even though The Unbreakables is contemporary, it was taking place in all those spots, those cafes, and the south of France, Provence, where, all my favorite characters in literature, drank coffee and made love.
Now I'm always going to think of you when I think of croissants and coffee. That is awesome. Where are, so before obviously COVID and everything, and we live in such a weird world right now.
Yeah.
But, where would your favorite places be to travel before and to get book inspiration?
Well, I've traveled all over the world, and for this book, I went to the south of France to do research. I took my family. Yeah, I took my family and we went to this gorgeous St. Paul de Vence and Aix and all over the south of France. And because I think it's really important as a writer that all of your senses, that you know what you write, you know where you write, you know what it smells like, what it feels like. And otherwise, it's not going to feel authentic. And it's really important for me that what you're reading is authentic. So I took my family and we went to the south of France for a research trip, which was amazing and
Delicious.
one of our best family times, really. And so there, Barcelona, all over Europe, Jerusalem, Israel, where as I had mentioned, I was a reporter for 7 years. And yeah, just everywhere. So I love Europe. I love, the Middle East, and I love home. I've traveled all over the United States as well. And so do a lot of travel. And I think I get the most inspired for writing when I'm traveling.
I can't wait for our world to be better and to have our travel. For
Me
sure.
Me too.
What advice do you have for aspiring writers?
Well, I have a few things for sure. Don't take no for an answer. This field is full of rejection. And it's just kind of ironic because writers can be the most sensitive people in the world. And yet it's so much rejection until you get that yes, or yes, we want your book. So don't take no for an answer. If you believe in what you're doing, it will happen. It might not happen today or tomorrow, but just keep plugging away. And probably the most important advice is if you're a newbie writer, begin to establish a writing community. There's so many outlets on social media that you can tap in, book salons, book groups, bookstagrammers, and TikTok, Book Talk, all over what you're doing. It's so important to see what authors are doing and take notes. But we're accessible. Authors are accessible now, and you can create dialogue. You can respond. And very, very important to branch out, if you're a writer, into a writer community. Also, to see if you can get a writing buddy to work with someone who might be able to sit across from you, or if not, Zoom with you. Just very important that someone else is, hearing your thoughts and you can play it off of someone. Writers, very important, be generous. And I promise you, it comes back. When, in my writing world, we all promote and support each other. Even if other authors are on your launch day, which essentially they're your competitors, but it doesn't matter. I always say there's room on the shelf for all of us. And so important to be a giving writer, a giving author, and, and develop friendships, writer friends. And, it takes time to nurture, but start there. So really important not to be alone with
that. Is probably the best advice. That is the best answer anyone's ever given on this interview. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And thank you so much for being on the show. Where can we find you on social media?
Yes. So I am Lisa Barr 18 on Instagram and TikTok. I have a Facebook page, author page, Lisa Barr. I'm just this week starting TikTok, Lisa Barr author. Which
are your kids having to help you?
It's so out of my comfort zone, but because my character's a young 24-year-old, I wanted to connect with that community as well. I feel like my generation can give back to Generation Z. We have a lot to say. So yeah, connect with me there. I've got a book site, lisabarr.com. You can connect with me there. And I'm pretty accessible. So yeah.
Sorry about that. Amazon's making a delivery.
I know. Oh my God, I hear it. My dog barks all the time as well.
And never worry about pub day for you and another author, because there's always, like you said, more than I'm a big book buyer. I'm a big Kindle reader. I always have tons of books on here ready to go. And I know that there's room. I always say there's room at the table for everyone, but I really
Everybody.
like better. Yours is better. There's room on the shelf for everyone.
There really is, and it's great because when you're a writer, you're a reader. So we need to read everybody's work. They read ours. It all works out.
And it's so funny. I have interviewed a lot of authors, and I always say, can you send me 10 to 15 titles that you love? Which one person actually sent me 10 to 15 books. So I had to like really make that clear. No, just the titles, not the actual books. And
That's so funny.
that was really funny, and kind of really fun too. But,
So funny.
your book has been mentioned so many times among other authors. They'll say, yes, Lisa Barr, The Unbreakables. And so you truly are, like you said, you walk the walk and talk the talk. And that shows because you're such a friend to so many others in this community that you're talked about.
Oh my God.
And encouraged and loved. So
my mascara's running. Can you tell?
Well, sending you a big giant virtual hug because you are loved in this community and treasured. And I'm so thankful that you were able to be on the show, even though we had a little technical difficulties.
No worries.
So,
and thank you for all that you do for authors. I can't even begin to tell you how much we appreciate that and all the work that you put into this. It means a lot.
Well, thank you so much. It's absolutely my pleasure. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.